This class is brought to you by the M.A.G Network and is part of our monthly education series. To find out about upcoming online and in-person events, subscribe and like our YouTube channel, or join our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/groups/M.A.G Network. If you have comments or suggestions for possible upcoming classes, email them to mag.network@outlook.com.
Hello, and welcome to the M.A.G Network. We're happy to have Kim Wahl from the National Ladies Homestead Gathering, Hawkins, Tennessee chapter with us. Kim has been a homeopathic consultant for 30 years and is here to share her knowledge. Today, Kim will be talking with us about homeopathy, how to apply it to your life, and how to build a homeopathic first aid kit. All right, good evening, everyone. Hello, Kim. How are you tonight, ma'am?
I am good. How about yourself?
Man, if I was any better, I'd have to be twins. I appreciate you coming and talk with us, Kim. Now, let's see. You're a homeopathic consultant. You've been one for like 30 years, I believe. Is that correct, ma'am?
I have. Yes, I have.
Awesome.
You know what? I came to it as a mother with a sick child.
Oh,
and,
wow. Yeah.
That passion is strong and fierce. And by the grace of the good Lord, I was directed into the hands of people that knew more than I. And now I'm here to pass that torch on like it was done to me 40 years ago. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, glad you're here. Now you're with a group out of, let's see, Hawkins, Tennessee, the National Ladies Homestead Gathering, Hawkins, Tennessee chapter, correct, Kim?
Yes, we are. We are the largest growing chapter in all the United States.
Wow,
we are
awesome.
A powerhouse full of a room full of ladies. We have people there, probably a good 70–75% of our ladies are all new transplants within the last few years. So we're all teaching ourselves, these new ways of life. But we got some really core, awesome ladies that have lived here that are bringing us alongside them and teaching us so we don't make mistakes, where we plant something or what chicken we might get or what animal we might want to raise. And so we're learning things that way. And the cool things, we're able to share that. I've been excited because, like I said, I'm new to the chapter. I only got to Tennessee last August.
Right.
And so I got into the chapter right away because I wanted to get involved and learn because I have land here. And
awesome.
They took me right in, and man, they've been awesome. And so my gift is that, I want to bring to that group my little niche. When I raised my hand, everybody looked at me and said, "Homeo who?" So
right.
I wanted to bring that knowledge, which, like I said, it's been a passion of mine for almost 40 years. Like I said, it's very life-changing. I've had very amazing moments throughout my life and seen people do things that, Western medicine said there was no hope. And don't get me wrong, I'm not doing anything. I'm just a conduit of God. He has given me a gift and I understand the way the body works. My friends call me a body mechanic because I always want to look at the reasoning why. I think that's why homeopathy resonated with me so much, is because it's about the whole person. It's about understanding, why are you expressing this symptom? Is it physical? Is it a suppressed emotional? Is it something environmental? I don't want to pill you, drug you, cut you, burn you, dose you. I want to understand why your body is screaming, "Hey, check engine lights on. I need some help here."
Right.
So, that's that got me when I got involved with, I think why it was so familiar to me to do it. It made sense to me.
Awesome. Well, at the end, we're going to have Renee Bernhessel, I think that's right, Clark, the president of the chapter, actually talk about what the National Ladies Homestead Gathering is, how other areas can get involved and stuff like that. But now, Kim, I'm going to turn it over to you. I look forward to hearing your discussion on homeopathy and taking some good notes to hopefully add it into my arsenal.
Thank you. And again, thank you for having me. Like I said, I feel very blessed that I'm able to share something that's so passionate with me, with others around, because it's about helping others up. It's about helping somebody else, gain that power.
Right.
Well, as I briefly said earlier, I came to homeopathy almost 38 years ago. My first job in life, I worked for Vaughn's Grocery Company. I was a checker, a bookkeeper, and a nighttime manager. And I had a daughter, and she was an asthmatic. And she was an asthmatic from vaccinations. And so I didn't know any better. I was a young mom, worked full time, did what the doctor told me to do, never saw anything telling me otherwise. And I was blessed with one of my coworkers gave me a book on homeopathy and I read it. And I thought, this makes sense. Like cures like. I got into the book. It was a very simple book. And in fact, this one is the one right here. This was one of them. And anyways, it made sense. So I went and I got the remedy and I gave the remedy to my daughter, and the remedy was phosphorus. And the remedy matched her mentally, physically, emotionally, and symptomatic, what her symptoms were. So here I gave her this remedy and I used a product called grapefruit seed extract, which is a physical product that's going to kill stuff, viral, fungal, bacterial, parasitical, non-toxic. So it's a good thing to have in the kit. But I used those two things, a physical thing to kill it and something homeopathic to match the symptoms in which the body was telling me. Well, like I said, that was 37 years ago, and she's been asthma-free ever since. Now, knowing the knowledge I know today, I know what her asthma was triggered by and different things, and she's never had an asthma symptom since. Because the beauty of homeopathy is if we get the right remedy, and especially at a young age like that, we can change the outcome of the health of that child. And in the literature, it says if you can do a child before they go through puberty, they won't pass that DNA or that genetics onto their children. So it's very powerful what we can do on any level. Again, my very first experience was with my daughter with asthma, and probably my most powerful story on the other end of that is my grandmother, who at 83 was diagnosed with breast cancer. One of 12 kids, had 6 sisters die from that. Took her to City of Hope, had the diagnosis, come back. I took her home. I said, okay, Grandma, we're going to do this. We're going to put you on your blood type diet because I want to make sure you're eating what's right for you to make you healthy. I put her on a couple of homeopathics to build her blood, and I put her on progesterone cream transdermally onto the breast to saturate the tissue, because if that hormone is high, survival rate is also high through literature that we've seen, documentation. So we went back to City of Hope 8 weeks later, and my grandmother's cancer was gone. But the profound thing was her arthritis of 45 years was gone, and her bronchitis was gone. She hadn't had any symptoms. Well, knowing we know today, again, homeopathy is a big part of that. And it was also her diet and what she was eating. So again, the physicals, the diet, the homeopathic works on that little nerve pathways to make sure things are correct or creating that homeostasis. So what I put together for you guys today, we could talk about homeopathy for hundreds of hours. I could tell you thousands of stories, and I'll probably throw a story or two in here because they are that powerful. Over my experience with my wellness center, I had a wellness center for about 16 years. And I tell everybody that was my classroom. I learned on the streets. I was a scrappy kid. I had somebody come in every single day and say, hey, Kim, what would you do? And there was a lot of times I would say, I don't know, but you know what, let's go sit down and find out. And I had an amazing table in my place filled with the library around us, and we would just sit, and it was powerful. So what I want to bring to you guys today is a little bit of what it is. I would suggest everybody to research it themselves, because you ask 100 different people, you're going to get 100, different ways of looking again at that puzzle. But for me, it was a life-changing moment. And so I went to school. I became a homeopath. I became part of the National Center of Homeopathy, which is in the notes for you all to check out. I highly recommend joining something like that to support it, but also for the knowledge of it. And a lot of conferences and things they do because you're a member as a benefit. So it's very enlightening. So one of the things, do you guys see that bar at the top? Tell me you don't. You just see the picture? Are we good? Okay.
Yeah, just the picture. It looks good, ma'am.
Okay. So
somebody asked a question in the chat, Kim.
Oh, I got to do chat too. You guys are really challenging me. Let's see. What is the name of the book? You know what I'll do at the end? I'm going to show a couple different books because there's a lot of really great ones. But that one there was by Dana Ullman. It's just homeopathic medicine. But there's a couple, because the thing is, when I brought this up when we did our class, the whole trick is a book is only useful to you if it's something that you can understand and digest. So some people, they like books that are very wordy and very, in depth. Other people like books that are just, very simple and to the point. And with homeopathy, we're going to have that with our books, because in homeopathy, you have 2 books you use. You have a repertory and a materia medica. And something like that has both of those in it. So it allows you to have less stuff to go through, because it's, when you go through it later, when I show you, you'll understand. But that's why we're going to just keep it with that thing and the material, something simple, because we want it to be simple. Anybody can go take it to the depth they want, but I don't want you to miss out on the fact of the uniqueness of what homeopathy is, because I find in my experience, a lot of times that when people say homeopathy, they really don't understand what it is. Homeopathy is not somebody asking you, let's say, for 500 milligrams of St. John's wort. Well, that's not a homeopathic, that's a physical substance in a 500 milligrams that I'm going to orally take, and my body's going to break down, digest, and utilize. Homeopathy, I would look at that substance would actually be called hypericum. And we use homeopathic hypericum for nerve injuries and issues with the nerve. But in homeopathy, it's going to come in a diluted form, which I will talk about in a little bit. So homeopathy itself just means pathos, which means homeo, which means similar, and pathos, which means disease. So when Samuel Hahnemann in his day, he was the father of homeopathy. And we only have one physician ever memorialized in the United States, and that's Samuel Hahnemann. And the hospitals, before the Fletcher report came and destroyed our medical profession, they were homeopathics. That's what our schools were. That was a form of medicine we used because it worked and it was effective. So anyways, Samuel Hahnemann was the father of homeopathy. He was a German physician. He was also a chemist. That's why he had a lot of proving information when it came to some of the chemicals and substances we see in homeopathy, like arsenic, mercury. He was also fluent in many, many languages, and he was a very famous physician of his day. He treated royalty. He was a top man in his profession. But he had issues with what the medicine at the time was doing to people. The bloodletting, the dosing with poisons, the mercury, the arsenic, things like that. And so he stepped away from medicine because, again, the oath said, first, do no harm. And he felt he was doing more harm than good. So because of his language skills, he became a translator for a physician, William Cotland. And looking through his translations, he came across this very interesting article on Peruvian bark. And Peruvian bark was shown to supposedly, they believe it was the quinine in it, Peruvian bark, when taken, would get rid of malaria symptoms. So Hahnemann thought, okay. So because in the time, in the world, we didn't test medicine on healthy people. It just wasn't part of what our pharmacopoeia was, what we did. So, so what he did is he took that bark and he took it in small doses and he dosed himself. He proved this dose. So he developed these symptoms of malaria. So he thought, and so he started looking at how the body has a natural ability to heal itself and correct itself. So if it was the Peruvian bark, he took it in a huge dose, but it didn't do anything. When given it to people with malaria, it did nothing for that. So it wasn't the physical amount of it. So that's where he started doing the experimentation. So he started looking through things that way. And like I said, with the provings of things like arsenic and things like that, mercury at the time, he could see what would happen in a proving when we give a healthy person a substance to a toxic level, and then they develop these symptoms. Now, the key is what is those symptoms they've developed? And that's what we want to look at. In homeopathy, we're going to go to our books again, which is the Materia Medica and the Repertory. And we're going to look into those books. And this was the first one I got. And I recommend this one the most because it was cheap. So see, it's just a simple one by Borky and Toffel. But you can go into those and they will list symptomatics and the remedies in which you can use to balance the body out with the right modality, because that's what it's about, is looking at how that modality matches what that remedy is. So, and he found in this that a lot of times it wasn't that the healing process was failing, it just needed a little help. It was just stuck. Something wasn't working properly. And he believed that homeopathy, when it's matched properly, gives that body that right stimulus. So, as the example goes, one of them is, everybody understands coffee. You drink coffee, you know, it agitates you, it keeps you up, it makes you focus, it makes you jumpy. Well, in homeopathy, it's going to have the opposite effect in the body. It's going to get rid of those symptoms. So we use it for insomnia. We use it for a chattery mind. We use it for anxiety. We use it for restlessness. So that's why we want to understand who that person is, because when we match that remedy to them, then that vibration of what that remedy is bringing into the body is going to clear the symptom that the body is manifesting. So that's the way we want to look at that. Let me see if I can get it to go to the next page. Oh, I want to go to the next page. Oh, you want to go next page? There it goes. Okay. So how it works. In homeopathy, what they're going to do is they're going to take a substance and they're going to take whatever that is. And we'll take this example of coffee. They'll take 1 part of coffee and they're going to dilute that substance in water, alcohol, or if the substance can't be diluted in water, they'll triturate it, which then means they'll grind it into a milk powder, trituration, so that it can get to a point where it can be dissolved. So they're going to take that substance, they're going to put it in water, and they're going to use a centesimal dilution rate, meaning if it's an X dilution, so you might see a 30X after a remedy, that means that remedy's been diluted at 30 times at a rate of 1 part of original substance to 9 parts of water, Roman numeral 10, and diluted with 1 part again and 9 parts of water, succuss, which is literally imprinting that remedy into the water. We want to succuss that. That's the whole trick to it. Potentization is what Hahnemann was passionate about. It was potentization and dilution. Those were the 2 keys to it. So each time you see that number, that process has been done that many times. So you will see an X usually, or you'll see a C remedy. And the C just means that it's been done at a rate of 1 part of original substance and 99 parts of water, or a Roman numeral 100. Most of the time, that's what you're going to see in the market. You might see higher potencies, but a lot of times those are used by professionals. But again, I don't get stuck on the potencies. I believe there's way more power in homeopathy than what they say. And that's through just my own personal experience and also reading some really great articles over my years from really fabulous homeopaths. Been very blessed to be educated through working through my wellness center with some very famous homeopaths out of Germany and other parts of the world. And it was very important because in those countries, homeopathy has not been suppressed in India and in Europe and stuff. They use homeopathy. It's America where we don't have the choice quite as well. So, and again, the whole key to this is we want to stimulate the body to fix what is off. And so if we get that right remedy and that right mix, we're going to get that to happen. And again, it's just helping that body to stimulate what the symptom is it's giving you, as opposed to Western or allopathic medicine. If I have allergies and I have a runny nose, I'm going to take something to dry it up. In homeopathy, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to give you something to encourage that symptom to go away. But on the same hand, let's say it's a grass allergy you have, and we can maybe do a homeopathic grass formula to desensitize you to that grass at the same time. I personally, in my experience, when I came to homeopathy all those years ago, I used it with my kids. Sure did. Cured my daughter. It was magic. Loved it. Used it with my son for things. It was magic. Then I was diagnosed with cancer. And I was given 6 months to live. I went through my Western treatment with my doctor at the beginning of my thing. And in 6 months, I had never been as sick as I was in those 6 months. Depressed, anxiety, it wasn't good. I had chickenpox for the 2nd time. I had colitis issues. It was horrible. And when I got to that doorstep and he said, well, you need a hysterectomy, you need this and chemo and hormone replacement. I said, whoa. I said, you know what? I said, I'm going to step back and do something different. And he reprimanded me. He told me, if you walk away, you'll be dead. You'll never see your kids grow up. You'll never see your grandchildren. Well, you know, again, the good Lord knew what he was doing. He pushed the right button on me and I said, okay. And I left there and I went to my class. I was actually studying homeopathy at the time. And I went in and I said, here I am. I'm your case. Let's take my case. And in homeopathy, when we take a case on someone, it takes hours to do. The beauty is, as a parent or somebody that, you know, you're close with, sometimes they can be very helpful. Like a parent knows their child. So it makes it easier to do. But anyways, I went in my class, we did a workup on me. And my remedy was pulsatilla. And I did, that's a windflower. It's made from a plant. And I did that remedy in a 200 seed potency. And then I also did grapefruit seed extract, again, viral, fungal, bacterial, parasitical, non-toxic, greatest stuff, vaginally. And went back to my doctor and I was well. But the crazy part is I was well emotionally. I felt when I took that remedy, and I did some flower essences as well, because I was very depressed. Flower essences, again, not talking about them tonight. Highly recommend researching it, Bach flowers. But they changed my life. The remedy changed my life. That was the first day of the rest of my life. That was back in my 30s. I'm in my 60s. I don't have allergy problems anymore. I don't have carpal tunnel. I don't have those things. Because in homeopathy, if you get it right, the body doesn't create new symptoms because you're balanced. Your body knows what it's doing. So that's the beauty of what you can achieve. And like I said, for me, I've never looked back, and I'm healthier today in my 60s than I was in my 20s. And that's a big statement, again, of the lie that, well, when you get older, this is just what happens to us. And again, I don't buy into their game. So the uniqueness of homeopathy is this, and this is where, again, you want to get in and kind of do your own exploring. Homeopathy is made from substances. So it can be a plant origin, it can be an insect origin, it can be a mineral, it can be a nosode. And I listed here for you guys to look at just some of the ones that are common ones that you might see out there. And a lot of time, again, in homeopathy, you're going to see certain things listed in a Latin name. And so like calendula, the Latin name of that are marigolds. So in the Materia Medica, things are written in Latin. So you'll see it, and it'll say right underneath what the actual plant or substance is. So it gives you great references. But you can see on this list here, there's all kinds of different things from all kinds of different realms of our world, and anything can be used. That's the most amazing part is that. And then nosodes are a little different. Not a lot of people know about nosodes, but nosodes are made from a disease substance. And what that's going to do is it's going to stimulate the body to be ready to fight or prepare for this substance or this vibration coming in at them, being whatever it might be health-wise. Example of that for me was I had 3 kids. Well, I still have them. And they grew up on a street, a little cul-de-sac, a very isolated cool little area. And we had scarlet fever come through our little neighborhood. And all the kids in the neighborhood got scarlet fever. Well, I was brand new to homeopathy, and I had this really great book that was talking about epidemics and what you could take for certain illnesses for children. And it recommended belladonna. So I gave all 3 of my kids some belladonna, and I gave them some extra vitamin D and some extra vitamin C, and made sure they were eating really good. And my kids didn't come down with it, but all the other kids in the neighborhood did. So again, it's about stimulating the body to be able to fight, because there's nothing on the outside per se via one of these that's going to make us well. It's what we do in our body to adapt to what's coming at us. So nosodes are sometimes hard to find, but there is companies out there that do make them. And one of the ones I recommend and I used when I had my wellness center was actually a flu nosode. And I would do it every single winter. And how you would do a flu nosode, like something like that for a symptomatic, like the flu season, because I worked with sick people at my wellness center. People didn't come in my wellness center because they were well. You would dose 1 dose once a week, 3 weeks on and 1 week off. And I did that through the season. And, I usually I really didn't get sick. And if I did, it was something very mild, because the body still detoxes and cleanses through sickness. It's just, if you're going to get the flu, get it for 24 hours instead of 2 weeks. That's the difference. It's about supporting the body and looking at that. So one of the things we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about a couple different remedies. And again, you could go through and have 100 different remedies and 1,000 different uses. So I picked 3 remedies that I thought were ones that would, first off, everybody should have in their kit. And they're a place to start. And I'll give you the cheat sheet. This is the cheat sheet. I recommend people that want to understand homeopathic remedies for what they are. When you buy something, and again, as an example, something like this is a homeopathic remedy made by a company called King Bio. And this remedy is for skin irritation and itch. You go to any store, anywhere, you can even go online. This is the beauty. You don't even have to buy the products anymore. Go online and look at their ingredient list. Look at what the ingredients are on the back of that label. Then you can understand why that remedy's in there and maybe get familiar with, boy, look, this remedy's in all these things. Boy, I read on that remedy and boy, it really matches my symptoms. That might be a remedy to make sure I have in my house. But that's an easy way to learn homeopathy. All these remedies are going to have issues with skin. All these remedies are going to have issues with itching. All these things are going to have irritation. So it kind of helps you understand remedies in a big picture, but in a simple way. So because you'll see the same remedies coming up over and over and over again in formulas, and you'll wonder, well, why is that? And again, we can read that in our Materia Medica and understand the whole depth. And this is kind of what I did, is I try to give you guys an example of how Materia Medica breaks down. And each one I did is different from what it is actually in my big book, because I wanted to also show you when Robin Murphy, who's one of my favorite homeopaths, when he does the breakdown of what he puts in the book, it's by different categories. So pharmacy is the first thing. It'll tell you what that substance is. And in this case, that substance is Arnica montana. Everybody usually knows what Arnica is. Everybody thinks all remedies are Arnica because Arnica is that good. But it is made from leopard's bane. It's made from a plant. And we use all potencies on it. And in the Materia Medica, in the reference books, it's going to give you these boundaries. And these boundaries are going to let you know, as in this case, Arnica should never be used on broken skin or an open wound. Okay, and why is we look down here under skin symptoms, it shows us that it can cause itching, eruption-y boils. So if we put that on the skin, that can cause those symptoms in a broken skin. That's why we use Arnica in a 3 dilution, because it's a little bit more diluted. It's not that first mother tincture, which can be a little irritating to the skin. And in this case, because Arnica does have an herbal component, it did give you that. So it gives you an effect of what it has been used, because it is one of those things that in cultures, people actually chew on Arnica and use Arnica in different ways, as an herbal as well as a homeopathic. So in a lot of times in a good Materia Medica, it's going to give you those indications so that you can understand in this case, the physical aspects of what Arnica can do as well. I find homeopathy, when it comes to things like plants, it just takes what they do sometimes and enhances how they can work in the body. But in this case, without the side effect, because homeopathy does that. A lot of herbs are used for healing, but sometimes herbs in high potencies, they can be toxic. Or they can be the wrong approach, like calendula. We think of calendula for a wound, which is a homeopathic, can be done as a tincture, but we would never use it for a deep wound. We would use St. John's wort or hypericum because we want that to heal from the bottom up. But I can use calendula orally for a deep puncture wound to help it heal from the bottom up. So it takes that action of what it does, and instead of being superficial, it makes it work a little deeper. So a lot of times you'll see a lot of remedies are things you would find in an herbal reference as well. And then usually the Materia Medica will go into a clinical. It'll tell you what that remedy is used for. And all I did is I just went through and I picked some out. There were way too many to put on a sheet for y'all to look at, but you can look them up online very easily and find free Materia Medicas and repertories that you can look through. So this is just some of the things we look at. And Arnica a lot of times is that. It's an injury, it's a shock, it's a head injury. It can help to reabsorb blood. It's for itchymosis. Itchymosis is when you see it in older people when their skin becomes so frail and they bump up against something and they get those big purpley red blotches on their skin. You can put Arnica topically on that. You sure can. Make sure you get a clean one. Make sure it's something that's clean, and it will help reabsorb that blood. Black eyes, mental shock, whooping cough. Again, something you wouldn't think of, but severe coughing as well. And then all remedies, when you look in the Materia Medica, will have an effect on the mind. So the key would be is looking at what it's going to be used for. And again, it's a fear one, and it lists that. And it talks about never wail sense of fright or a grief. It's for a shock. It's for a trauma. It's usually for a physical trauma. So we look at it for surgeries. We look at it for car accidents. We look at it for, it can be used emotionally, but usually emotionally, we would consider aconitum. Because aconitum, they make the joke in homeopathy, aconitum is for the person who witnesses the car accident, and arnica is for the person that's in the car accident. So aconite has that great shock and happen to it. And then the Materia Medicas are going to break down, and they're going to break down and show you all the parts of your body, starting from the top of your body to the bottom of your body and everything in between. And so it'll go through and it'll talk about that. And again, I will tell you as a practitioner, I had a coworker when I worked at one of the homeopathic pharmacies in California, Merit Homeopathy, probably one of the largest ones now there is in Southern California. Anyways, her brother was in a motorcycle accident and he was left on the side of the road and was found hours later in a coma. And I worked with her and she called me at home that night and she said, my brother's been in an accident. And I said, he needs arnica immediately until we figure out what he really needs. And she, well, I don't know if my family's going to do any of that. I just, I said, well, that's what I would do because there was a head trauma. Natrum sulfa is another one for head trauma. Needless to say, they did Western therapy. 7 days later, they were going to unplug him because the symptoms were, his body was failing. And so she called me and she said, Kim, what do we do? And I said, this is what you got to do. So she got a remedy, the arnica, in a high potency. She made it into a liquid form and she rubbed it into the gums of his mouth. And he came out of the coma. And he's alive today, living a life. Now, there was damage. There was 7 days of swelling in the brain. What breaks my heart is if he could have given that remedy day one, what could have, we would have stopped that bleeding. We could have changed that. So that's the beauty of having these remedies on hand. Again, the joke with homeopathy and arnica is that kid that bumps their head and they get that egg on their head and you give them arnica and you can watch the egg go away. It's powerful. So again, it's a great one to have on hand for all kinds of different things. And another thing to look at the vastness of the remedy, because this is a really great remedy. Interesting enough, again, the itchymosis people, the old people with the skin thing, this is also a really good one for vertigo with the elderly that have nausea. So again, we find certain remedies that match one thing. They might improve the bleeding under the skin, but they might sleep better. Their mind might be better. They might be, there's going to be a shift on all levels. And that's what makes homeopathy so, in my opinion, so powerful and yet so personal. Because when you find that right remedy and it's you, it's easy to keep yourself in balance. So the next one I did is a remedy called Caliphos. And why I did Caliphos is, first off, it's one of my favorite cell salts. And that's, again, under this one, I put history because it didn't have an herbal indication, but the history of this one is, it's one of the Schussler's, I think that's right, cell salts. There's 12 of them, and they're the salts they say that make up the body. And in this case, we're looking at Caliphos or phosphorus, or excuse me, potassium. And potassium in this case, it's found first off, historically, it's found in the body, the brain, the muscles, the nerves, the cell, everything has this substance in it. So if there's an imbalance somewhere in the body, we could see how it would affect all parts of the body in lots of ways. But it's so powerful because it is the brain and the nerves. And again, we look at this remedy as we call it under the Constitution, it's nature's Valium. It helps to calm the nervous system. So constitutionally, this is a remedy we use for somebody that's very weak, pale, sensitive, irritable. They're just burnt out. They just can't anymore. And again, clinically, it has things that, again, you would see that, anemia, asthma, breathing issues, brain fog, carbuncles, which are like infected hair follicles, the body's not well, facial neuralgia, hysteria. So you can see a lot of that physical as well as emotional symptoms fall under all the remedies. And that's, again, the thing to look at as you start to get to know them better. And I would recommend looking into the 12 cell salts. There's lots of little books. You can get super little ones that list all 12. And they're very basic. You don't have to know if you're a constitutional this or if you're on a something that. Cell salts, I find, are very complementary. When my grandmother was going through the cancer preparation for surgery, like I told you, I put her on a cell salt called, I put her on Caliphos, but I also put her on one called Ferrumphos, which is homeopathic iron. And what homeopathic iron does, it actually helps to create hemoglobin. It helps to build the blood. It helps the body fight something or prepare for something. It builds the system. So that's why I put her on those. Was she on them forever? No. She did end up on one down the road, which was one called Calc Fluor, which is a cell salt that's used for dissolving bone spurs, because she had one in her neck from breaking her neck as a young woman. And at 88, they wanted to do neck surgery on her bone spurs. And I talked her out of it. And I said, let's try the homeopathic first. She dissolved them. They went away and she never had an issue. And the best part of the story of Grandma, which I didn't mention, is Grandma lived to be 100 and a half years old. And between the ages of 83 and 98 were probably the healthiest years of her life. They probably would have been better at 98 to 100, but she went to one of those bad places where they do bad things to old people. And my parents wouldn't let her come to live with me. So another story, another day. But the beauty is this, is when you start to look at these remedies and you start to look at some of the things, they'll have things that will repeat through them. Like one of the things of this one is the yellowness of the remedy. So if there's something coming from the nose discharge, it's going to be yellow. Diarrhea, in this case, it's yellow. It smells. Even the mucus from the nose can smell. There's a little bit of funk in the mucus. And Kali Phos is part of a couple Kalis. There's Kali Mur, there's Kali Phos, and there's Kali Sulf. So each potassium, this one's phosphate, one's a sulfate. So each one will have different effects on the tissue. Like Kali Mur we use for the very beginning of things. Clear mucus, very simple, no big deal. Kali Phos, it's a little bit more. And Kali Sulf is like the coal that gets stuck and you just can't get rid of it. So again, understanding them, just like the natrums also come in a 3 set. One balances the cells, water in the cells, one distributes the water, and one detoxifies the water. So again, it's cool to have these little tools. So if you have certain things, you can kind of make your own little formula for certain symptoms for a certain person. And again, it's a customized medicine. And it can be done with any pharmaceuticals. We have no side effects, no worry of counterindication. Only difference is it might make you feel better. You might not need those medicines as much. So you might want to just let your doctor know, hey, I don't think I need this sleeping pill anymore. I'm doing pretty good without it. And, you know, be brave. Be brave to own your own wellness. And then the last one I want to throw out there is a remedy called Nux Vomica, because in my personal opinion, they should put it in the water system. Because Nux is a remedy that is used for addiction. It is used for abuse. It's used for alcoholism. It's used for kidney stones, all kinds of different things. But Nux Vomica it's a poisonous nut. It's very bitter. So it's like I said, it would cause these symptoms in a healthy person. But it's a really great remedy for somebody who's overstimulated. Now you can be overstimulated. And again, you can look at these modalities on anything. It can be an animal, it can be your child, you know, it can be an elderly, anybody, but it talks about that overstimulation. So it can be from video games. It could be from any kind of stimulation, from too much coffee, from too much alcohol, from anything. And it's the ill effects thereof. And so Nux Vomica, again, has a huge effect on the liver. So a lot of things it's going to address. Again, some of these remedies are very organ specific. In this case, it's going to affect the liver. And that's a big thing that a lot of people today have issues with, is hot livers. They're not sleeping, they're not detoxifying things the way they should. And so we're going to see symptoms because of that. And here again is some of those things. And interesting enough, the more these people are in this behavior, the more they desire the stimulants. So a lot of times this remedy can actually be very helpful with helping people that are addicted to drugs or alcohol, to help them withdraw from it and help change that. And I would do, again, flower essences and other therapies to both heal and empower them. But I have witnessed it personally many, many times. It's a very awesome remedy. And that's why I wanted to throw it out there. And then the joke of Nux Vomica is this. Nux Vomica is the hangover remedy. If you wake up in the morning and you are hung over, Nux Vomica is going to make you feel pretty darn good. Now, if you're drunk and you take Nux Vomica, it's probably going to make you vomit. But it is known as the hangover remedy, and it is very good for that. So again, when you look at the modalities listed here underneath the physical, we can see it's for nausea, it's for violent vomiting, it's for heartburn, indigestion, gas, anything stomach. There used to be a really good formula, and I don't know if it's still available, by Highlands, and it was a Carbo Veg and Nux Vomica, and it was like an indigestion formula, and it was kind of like a natural Tums. It just helped the body process or deal with what was happening, on my experience from eating something you're not supposed to eat. That's a big part of it too, is what you're putting in that motor. Got to put the right gasoline. And one of the things too, I want to just again put out there for you guys to understand, is when you get homeopathy and you get it right, like in my case, like I told you, I was in my 30s when I was diagnosed, and I had a lot of health issues, and I took a lot of medication, and my cancer, after understanding it, Louise Hay is a wonderful woman. I would highly recommend you look at her books, Healing Yourself from A to Z. Amazing, looking at the mind-body connection, because it's all about that. But when I understood what was going on with my cancer, it made sense. It went back to my parents' divorce. So since I was a little girl, I suppressed that inside of me. I had chronic tonsillitis, strep throat for 2 years. No matter what they gave me, it didn't help because I didn't have an infection. I had anger that I couldn't voice my anger at my parents. So for 2 years, I walked around with suppressed in my thing, and I had impetigo in my, it was horrible what I suppressed. So when I took homeopathy in my 30s for the first time to heal myself, it was like I stopped my body in motion and cracked open that egg and peeled off these layers. And this is talking about how that happens. And what happens is, and I want to make sure you can see the top, but it's called Herring's Law of Cure. So the body is going to work from the inside out, from the top down, and in reverse order. So my body dealt with the cancer I was dealing with right away. Sure did, because that was there. And then it starts going backwards. I was healthy, good, and all of a sudden I started having allergies again. Well, that's really weird. I haven't had allergies in a while since I changed my diet and stuff with my cancer. Now they're back. That's weird. So I took a homeopathic remedy. The allergy symptoms went away. I went on. A couple months later, I got them again. They weren't so bad. They went away. Well, that was over 30 years ago, and I've never had an allergy symptom issue since. And then it went to the next thing and the next thing, and my hormones, my depression, my traumas, all the little things I went through as a human being in my life. And now here I sit in my 60s, and I'm a pretty healthy, tough broad. I don't take any pharmaceuticals. I can run circles around sometimes people half my age. I have a good, clear mind. You know, I'm living my best life. And that's why I'm so passionate about sharing this. I look forward to the next 60 years. Can I run as fast as I did when I was 20? Heck no. But you know what? I'm pretty savvy at getting things done, you know, a little bit more efficiently. But I just take life at a slower pace, and then I enjoy what that pace is. But understanding sometimes when you take this, and why I brought this to your attention, is sometimes when you take a remedy, the symptoms get worse. That's not a bad thing. That's just the body going, bleh, I need to get rid of this. Then you continue to take that remedy, and remedies are taken in frequency depending on how they're needed. So if I'm in an acute situation, I could take that remedy every 15 minutes if I needed to. You know what? I'm feeling a little bit better. I'm going to take it every hour. Gosh, you know what? I feel really good. I'm going to stop taking it. 2, 3, 4, 5 days go by. Oh, the symptom came back. I would take the remedy again. Or maybe my symptom changes and now I need to change my remedy. Now, maybe my nose went from green and chunky and lumpy to a nice yellow. So I'm going to change that remedy. And now it's clear and white. And I'm going to change that remedy to clear and white. And look at now, I don't have nose issues anymore. I've taken away the suppression I suppressed up in there. I've allowed the body to remove the layers as it was willing to do, because your body doesn't want to heal something if it ain't ready to heal it. And neither do you, because you want to look at all aspects, emotionally, physically, mentally, energetically. All those things make us up. And that's what makes a good quality of life. So what I wanted to give y'all is a little bit of resources. And I listed on the side here 3 people, which to me, Dr. Robin Murphy, who is the one that made the best books ever made. I've studied with him personally. I know him. I broke bread with him. He's a great man. Look him up. Dana Ullman, again, has been around forever. He's an author of lots of great, easy to use books. He also is part of Educational Services. It's a place you can go and get a lot of homeopathic books and tapes and lectures and all kinds of stuff. It's a great resource. And then I had to put Jeannie Zeeb in there because Jeannie Zeeb is my mentor. And she still practices in California. And she was the one that took me on this journey all those years ago and blessed me with the knowledge of a good teacher who allows her students to do the work themselves. And I will tell you this story. My daughter, who is the reason I do homeopathy, my asthmatic, phosphorus worked like a dream for her. She was healthy as could be, never had any more asthma, going on her merry little life as a child. She gets to puberty, and all of a sudden she starts getting these nosebleeds. And, you know, first nosebleed, it's no big deal. Second nosebleed, no big deal. Third nosebleed, no big deal. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, something's up here. So I was in class and I said, you know, Jeannie, something's going on with my daughter. And she says, Kim, you're a homeopath. Chart it. Write it down. Is it a time? Is it a weather? Is it a this? What is it? Well, interesting enough, She was having a nosebleed every 28 days. What happens every 28 days in a young girl? She hadn't gotten her period yet. She hadn't manifested a cycle yet. So anyways, I go to the homeopathic book because her constitutional is phosphorus. It matches her to this day. And she's 40. And I read under menses, I read under female, and it said nosebleed instead of a menses. That's a symptom of a phosphorus, a person, a constitution of who she was. So I always say to people, what do you think they would have done if I would have taken her to a Western doctor? What would they have done? Would they even have looked at any of that? So anyways, I gave her what's called a divided dose. In homeopathy, sometimes we give what's called a divided dose. If we just want to clear something or it's more constitutional as opposed to an acute issue. So I gave her phosphorus in a divided dose, which is 1 dose every 12 hours for 3 doses. And I gave her phosphorus in a 200C. And by gosh, the next month she got her period. And she's never had an issue with it since. And she's never had the nosebleed since. That's the power of the right remedy, doing the right thing on a cellular level from day 1. And that's why I want to empower it. But you can also do it on day 83 like grandma and have some of the best years of your life using a tool that can empower you that way. And then another thing on here is thrifty books. I love thrifty books. I always plug them. I don't get nothing, but I love them because you can get great books there, old books. I love the old books because they're not censored and you can get them cheap. And then below is some companies that you can order from. Washington Homeopathics is one that I like. They have a broad spectrum of things you can get. Hahnemann Laboratories, Olisos. I don't know how much direct, but they do have an online, but they are sometimes found in stores as well. And then I am a fan of Dr. King's, King Bio products. It's the one I showed you guys all earlier. And I like them too. They do a animal line, which is really cool. You put a little drop in a capsule in your dog's bowl of water. And you can treat them for that. But most of the time, oh, look, they rolled away. Where'd they go? There they are. They rolled away. Most of the time, this is how you guys are going to get your remedies. You're going to come in little 2-gram things. They're going to come in little pellets. How do I take it out of this little jar, Kim? You take it, you pour the pellets in the cap, pop it under the tongue, and let it dissolve. Now, again, this goes back to that whole homeopathic. I hear this, I hear that. I've heard many different stories about, oh, no coffee, no peppermint, no this, no that. Okay, I believe those things are very powerful medicines in themselves. If you're going to take a homeopathic remedy in an acute situation, you've been hit by a car or something's happened, it doesn't matter, you're taking the remedy. But if you're going to take a remedy for a purpose, then you want to take that remedy on a dry, clean, empty mouth all by itself. 15, 20 minutes away from anything else. Let that energy do its thing, let it go through your system and do what it's going to do. So that's what I would recommend. And then another one I just want to throw out there. This product here is called Sting Stop. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Again, greatest stuff ever made. Highly recommended. It's a homeopathic that you can do topical for stings, bites. You can put it on. And I have a very close girl in my homesteading group who has a little tweaked immune system. And boy, when she gets bit, she blows up so bad. And I've been working with her. And so she was over here at my house the other day and she was just scratching all the time. I felt so bad. So I actually went in, I got this out and I squirted it into a little jar for her. And I said, take this, please, and rub it on. And she was like, okay. And she rubbed it on. We continued to talk. And she's like, wow, what did you give me? I always itch. I blow up like a balloon. I don't stop itching. What did you give me? So again, you know, it's having those really cool tools on hand that in a pinch, you know, you've got something there. Not that there's not other things. I'm a big fan of mustard for burns, but Urtica Urns is a great homeopathic for burns. Yes, Miss Nancy, you know all about mustard and honey, don't you? Yeah, that was a fun adventure in life. But the beauty is those tools we can have in our cupboard. We can have that knowledge ourselves. We can have that power ourselves. I know what I have with the doctor there or that choice, but I'm going to try to do as much as I can myself to empower myself. And again, the beauty is this. True healing is homeopathy does not treat disease. It is believed that homeopathy activates the body's own bioenergetic healing process at both the physical, mental, and emotional levels to create homeostasis or to bring back balance to the body and mind. The range of problems in which homeopathics can be used safely is extensive, and there are no side effects. And you know what? That is the true focus of what we're talking about today, because there's so many things out there that are toxic. And not to say that in a right on filter here, Essential oils can be toxic. Supplements can be toxic. Herbs can be toxic. Everything can be toxic. So be smart in what you do. Read and understand for yourself. I always use the filter of blood type when you're doing certain things in high doses, because you want to make sure those things aren't going to irritate your blood. So I'm just going to throw that out there for y'all. And to finish my chat with y'all, I have a very awesome friend, Robert Scott Bell, another homeopathic friend of mine. And his quote is that the power to heal is ours. We have that power within us. And the key is this. Here's a tool. It's not the only tool, but it's a really powerful tool you can put into your quiver. So when you come up against something, you can go, oh man, I've tried all these different things and it didn't work. Or what can I do in that moment to prevent possibly the death of something because of a shock, a trauma, an accident, when I could have used a remedy to free that energy that was stuck. And an example of that is this, and this is what I'm going to leave you with. When I left my job as a grocery checker and I went to work at this pharmacy in a town called Valencia, California, I went to work for this pharmacist and I said, let me bring you this gift. And he had a little teeny shelf in there and he didn't have much stuff he ever sold. So it was a little teeny place. And he said, I'll give you a chance. There's a desk. You can go sit at that desk and let's see what you do. So I sat at that desk like a little faithful little person, and it was super awesome. I loved it. And one day he brought this lady over to me and he said, Kim, this is so-and-so, and I'd like you to work with her. And I said, no problem. And I had a really cool little desk we sat at, old fashioned wood desk. And she sat on one side and I sat on the other side, and we started to talk. And this pharmacist brought her to me because she had vertigo, severe vertigo for over 5 years. And she was on her 6th pharmaceutical. And she was getting to the point where her quality of life was deteriorating to the point where she almost couldn't function anymore. Had MRIs, had all these things. Nobody could find anything wrong with her. So she sat down at my desk. And the first thing as a homeopath I'm going to ask her is, well, what happened in your life 5-6 years ago? And she kind of looked at me with confusion and she said, well, nothing really. She said, well, I was in a car accident. And I said, I said, were you hurt? And she says, oh no, but it scared the holy shit out of me. I said, okay. So I went to my beautiful little case and I got this beautiful little remedy. And I said, I want you to take this remedy, take 3 pellets when you leave here. And when you get in your car, take 3 pellets before you go to bed, and take 3 pellets in the morning when you wake up, and let me know, how you feel. So anyways, I go about my day, and the next day I come into work and she's sitting at my desk. And I thought, So I sit down at my desk and I'm like, so how are you? And she says, okay, what the heck did you give me? And I said, why? And she says, because this is the first morning I've woken up in 5 years without vertigo. What did you give me? And so at that point, I actually gave her the Materia Medica. And I said, here, I want you to read the remedy I gave you. And she read it. And as she read it, she said, there are my symptoms. The vertigo was described in the remedy. The remedy was aconite. That's what I gave her for fear. The vertigo she described was the exact vertigo she had. She had the stomach, she had the sleeping, she had all these other symptoms that she had been suffering from, but the vertigo was so severe. I mean, that's going to, rock your world. And needless to say, she sat across that desk for me for a little while as we went and peeled that onion away. And the quality of her health improved to the point where she had quality of life back. And that's what matters. We can all look at that, and nobody knows you better than you. So when you start to read those remedies and you read that mind and you go, oh my gosh, that's so me. I so am that. Oh, and I have this and that. Taking that remedy can just help balance you out so you feel better. You have clarity of mind. We all can get stuck in the negative energy spin, but if we keep our body as an electromagnetic machine, if we can keep it firing on all cylinders, then we're going to have quality of health and quantity of health, because I'm going for 120. Maybe 150.
That's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. I like how you tied in some real world experiences, just like the one that you just told about the lady with vertigo and stuff. And
We never know.
I personally have never been into homeopathy. Homeopathy? How do you pronounce that?
Homeopathy.
Homeopathy.
Homeopathy. Yes, homeopathy.
I've done herbalism and stuff like that, but this is kind of neat because I like how it
overlaps.
Try to find what the trigger was for your body, and from that you can figure out, oh, based on that, this is what's been happening. Hey, that makes sense and stuff. So it is. I like how it's like the healing from inside out, top down, and all that stuff. So I kind of like that analogy. That was pretty neat.
Because sometimes you see people that they're doing all the right things and yet they're not getting better. I mean, I had an episode myself a few years back where I actually re-injured an old injury that went back to being a teenager. And I was taking everything I should have taken for it that should have made my pain go away. I was taking everything and it wasn't getting better. And by gosh, I took a remedy for grief and guilt and the pain went away. Because that was the time when my parents had going through their divorce and all the fighting and all that. My life was a hot mess. And I had a very bad gymnastics accident and was hurt very badly. And that trauma, that weak area, it just kind of all stuck there. And I carry that around with me, you know, always had hip issues, had sciatica during my pregnancies, always had issues on my hip, on my hip, on my hip. But I had carried that since I was a teenager, but I cleared it, interesting enough, in my late 50s. It was very interesting when I did that, and I'd had it all those years, never bothered me. And then one day it became an issue and I did all the things that I supposed to do and it didn't work. And it just thought I had to stop for a minute and think. And I did. It was actually by King Bio. It was a remedy called grief and guilt. And it was magic. So
Wow.
like I said, we don't know sometimes, but that's where when we get stuck, sometimes the physical, like you're saying, the herbal, that's physical. That's, you know, so many milligrams, that's stimulating things. Sometimes we might need the energetic to get the body back online, especially my experience has seen is if somebody, as an example, you know, when women go through childbirth or women in general, even all blood types, sometimes can have iron issues. And so the doctor is going to give you something that is a synthetic. The biggest thing is most of the stuff we take that poison us is synthetics. So look at that. But it's a synthetic iron. That's why it makes you, pardon my French, poop like a rabbit. It's terrible. And when women take it, they don't get better. Well, interesting enough, you can do ferrum phos and you can turn back on the creation of the hemoglobin, because if you're taking a synthetic iron all the time, the body's going to get to a point where it's going to say, oh man, I can't do any more of that. I got to put up a protection against this. I can't handle this iron anymore. It's toxic to me. So, but it's also a necessity to me. But again, it's synthetic and it's not a good plant-based or animal-based iron. But then we can give them a plant-based iron along with the homeopathic, reestablish how the body utilizes their iron, and then they don't have that problem as they go forward. And I saw that a lot treating people with pernicious anemia. Very simple, because their body is just, you can give it to them any way you want. The body doesn't know what to do with it.
Right. Great information. Let's see. Have a couple people with some comments here.
Bring it on.
Nancy is saying that you're one of her mentors for over 25 years.
Nancy's pretty humble. She's a pretty amazing little spirit all in herself. We have definitely been two irons that have sharpened each other over the decades. That's for sure. We have had some battles and seen some wounds and we've seen the power of what the right remedy can do. For sure.
Ladies, anyone else, feel free to unmute, ask any questions you have before we wrap it up. I mean, I'm sure Kim's more than happy to try to answer any questions y'all have.
Like I said, my biggest thing is just to encourage you to go look for yourself. You know, I did a presentation similar to this with my homesteading girls last month. And it was so awesome. When I went to the meeting last night, I had a couple of girls come up to me and say, you know, we got done with that meeting and we went home and we just read everything we could find on homeopathy. And we got a couple remedies. And the one lady was saying, yeah, I don't know what was wrong with my husband, if he had food poisoning or ate something or what it was, but I gave him this remedy. And he got up in the morning and said, I'm not going to go to work. I don't feel good. And she said, well, try this remedy. And she gave him the remedy, and it was ipecac, which ipecac we use to induce vomiting. But in this case, it actually settles the stomach. And she said, next thing you know, he came around the corner. He says, I don't know what you gave me, but I feel great. I'm going to work. You know? That's what it's about right there. You've empowered a family, you know, that mom knows. I knew when I took my kids to the emergency room that something was wrong. And the doctor would say to me, oh no, their ears are clear. They're fine. Everything's fine. I said, they're not. Go see your regular doctor in a couple of days. I go to my regular doctor in a couple of days, raging ear infection. Well, why didn't the doctor see that in the ER? Because it hadn't manifested to that point. The symptoms were there. I saw the irritability, the lack of sleep. I saw the symptoms, but it hadn't manifested to the ear infection. So what I learned as a young mom is I started to then, when I saw those symptoms change, then I'd give the remedies. And guess what? We never got sick again. The only thing I went to the ER for was for sutures, because I didn't sew. So that was the only thing. And now I got a daughter that sews for me, so I don't have to worry about it.
There you go. Pamela is asking, do you have any suggestions for ringing in the ears?
There are some actual tinnitus homeopathic remedies that are combinations. There are. So you can definitely look at that. But again, what you're looking at in something like that is we're dealing with inflammation. I mean, that's the key to everything is inflammation. So I always highly recommend people, again, go educate yourself about the blood type. Not everything in the blood type information is 100% in stone, but I'm going to tell you a good percentage of it makes sense. And I've seen it change people's lives. The things that don't follow through, or the things that are changed or altered in it sometimes, are usually foods or things that your body's adapted to or been exposed to in a bad way that have caused you to become sensitive or issues with it. But I would always look at that. But again, in homeopathy, you can actually type that in. And what it'll do is it'll bring up what's called a repertory. And a repertory is the book. When you open up the repertory is filled with all the remedies, or the repertory is filled with all, which you probably can't see any of that, but it's filled with all the symptoms and what remedies are used for it. So you can look up tinnitus. And you would look it up, and when you would look at the remedies, you would see it say possibly it's worth with cold weather exposure, or it's better with this, or it's only in my right ear, or it's only when I'm laying down. So that would make a remedy more specific. But what's out there in the world today that makes it really awesome is there are companies that make combinations. And what a combination is considered like a shotgun approach. There's something in there that's going to work for your symptoms. That are those symptoms, not necessarily you, but they're going to work for those symptoms. So if you took that remedy and nothing happened, what that means is your remedy wasn't in there. That's all it means. So I'm going to give an example of that and why it's important. It doesn't matter if it's a homeopathic remedy that says whatever it says on the front of it. If you understand the remedies, then you know what that product could be used for. So an example is King Bio makes a remedy called gout. And I used to tell everybody it's a really great remedy to carry in your kit when you camp or you go out into the world. That way, camping and hiking and stuff like that. Because one of the remedies that's in there is urtica urns, and urtica urns is great for burns. So you can, it says gout on the label, but I can spray your urtica urns on a burn and it'll take the sting right out of it. But it also has nux vomica in it, which again, we can use for what? Hangovers or partying too hard or staying up too late. So it's a really fun one. So that's why if you understand the remedies, then it doesn't matter what the label says. You can find that remedy you need in there. But in your case, Pamela, you can go online, put that in. You can either get a list of common remedies for that problem, and then in the Materia Medica, read which ones actually matches you, or you can try a broader approach by doing a combination remedy.
Awesome. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? You can put it in the chat or feel free to unmute and ask away. All right. Well, Kim, I very much appreciate you spending time with us this evening, sharing some great information, and actually opened up my eyes to some stuff that I hadn't even thought about or even considered homeopathy before. So I appreciate that from my standpoint.
And again, too, like I said, anybody that watches this after the fact too, Bach flowers are another great tool to bring into your arsenal, both for you, your children, and your animals. I cannot promote them highly enough. I've seen them change people's life in such beautiful, beautiful ways. That I want to just make sure anybody that's out there, and they kind of do fall on the line of the homeopathic thought process, that, you know, all disease, the brain, all impulses come from the brain. Is that impulse positive, negative, destructive? So if we can keep the mind healthy, Bach was a homeopath. Actually, his first original training was that. But again, that would be just one of those things too, to make sure everybody checks them out too.
Jennifer asked, my 3-year-old granddaughter was recently diagnosed with VUR. She has repeated UTIs and resistant to many antibiotics. Are there any remedies for that?
Well, again, I like to look at people like a mechanic, the whole picture, and I'm gonna give you an experience of this. My granddaughter, when she was a little girl, she would have female bladder issues that way all the time, and she's an O blood type, and we found out that her issue was apple juice, and apple juice being eliminated that way was causing her bladder to be irritated, and also the skin. So we eliminated apple juice out of her life and the problem went away. Now, yes, the remedy that I would recommend for that kind of stuff is a remedy called natrum salt. And natrum salt is effective because another thing, again, is when is the rash? Is it all the time? Or excuse me, the bladder issues, is it all the time? Better or worse? Because sometimes that irritation can also be from teething and the body's super acidic. And so it's irritating the bladder. So natrum salt was my favorite teething remedy because all of my children got issues with teething. Even my grandkids did, interesting enough. It's so crazy to see what your family dynamics are. But natrum salt actually can help cut the acidity and take away a diaper rash or something. But again, that's the way I would look at it. If she can find out what the child's blood type is, start there, because it could be something super simple. And here's that little, can't do apple juice. But interesting enough, as we've matured and we are becoming more educated as we go, how the world works, a lot of apple juice has glyphosate in it. And that's a neurotoxin. That's going to damage the bladder. It's going to damage a lot of systems. So interesting enough, one of the other things that irritated my granddaughter was strawberries. And when we left California and we came to Tennessee, and I got some strawberries, and interesting enough, she can eat them and she doesn't have to rush to the bathroom to go to the bathroom, because that's how it affects her. Her system is the bladder. So this little 3-year-old, that might be what's going on. There might be something environmental. There might be something emotional. She might be pissed off about something, because that would be what we look at Louise Hay. She would look at the emotional aspects. I would look at the dietary aspects. And again, there are actual formulas that you can take for that. They make bladder formulas. No harm, no foul. If it doesn't help her, it doesn't help her. If it does, great. But I would still look at the systematics. Why is that a problem for her? And unfortunately, in our world today, we have to look at all the toxins that are affecting us and then be able to help our body detoxify them better. And sometimes homeopathy can be very powerful for that. Gemotherapy is a form of homeopathy that uses buds and plants and stuff to stimulate liver and kidney in certain areas. I mean, I've seen people with kidney failure turn their kidneys back on with the right homeopathic formulation. So, but that's what I would do. I would always start looking at the whole picture. And again, that's kind of what homeopathy looks at. Look at the mentals. Was there a trauma? Maybe there was a new baby in the house. Maybe something changed. Or maybe there was a new food introduced, or again, the body is manifesting something environmental.
I have an off the wall question. It just clicked based on that question. Like a lot of pharmaceuticals is like for, 16 and over, or only this age group, that. But with homeopathy, the way I'm understanding, it is geared toward the individual person. So that's not necessarily the case. It could work for a 3-year-old, or it could work for an 80-year-old, because it's based on the functions of the body and getting that back on track.
Exactly.
Is that kind of right?
100%. The only difference is a 3-year-old can't be as descriptive as an 80-year-old in telling you what the symptoms are. So that's why you have to be a little bit better detective. When you notice your kid's behaviors change, your happy-go-lucky child is all of a sudden laying in the corner, or your dog, or, here you are, here I am. I was a happy, motivated, loving my life mom, and I was depressed out of my mind and didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't even care. But I was beaten down to that point, with the Western things that were just suppressing me in doing. So but you are right. That's the beauty of homeopathy. I've used it as young as a newborn. Bioplasma, which is a great remedy to help build the system. It's all the salts together. And I've used it as old as my grandma, at 100 years old, when she was actually poisoned by an antibiotic and was having psychotic episodes. I took her a homeopathic remedy to clear that and brought her back to sanity. So like I said, it's interesting what you can achieve with the right remedy match. But yes, that's the beauty. Bottom line is, you get the wrong remedy, nothing will happen. And again, don't get caught up, because homeopathy's had some big pitfalls over the years. And one of them was potencies. And there was, the universe likes to put us against each other, because that's the best way to divide us. So we must learn that lesson so we don't repeat that lesson in the future, people. Sure. Anyways, there was a big debate between low potency and high potency, and they fought each other. We're right, you're wrong, blah, blah, blah. Okay, it's like this. It's like a tuning fork. If I have a tuning fork and I walk into a room and that room's filled with tuning forks, when I hit my tuning fork, only one fork's going to vibrate the exact right vibration I need. Others might be close, but it's not going to be that same one. That's what we're trying to get with homeopathy, is that exact vibrational match. And if we get that, that's where we can get that healing response we're looking for.
Well, Kim, I want to thank you for the great information. And now, if you don't mind, I'd like to take a moment to introduce Renee. She's the president of the Hawkins, Tennessee chapter of the National Ladies Homesteading Gathering. Renee, you there, ma'am?
Yes, can you see me or hear me? I don't know if you can see me.
All of the above.
All of the
Okay,
above.
great. All right. Well,
Would you
thanks for
mind
having
telling-
Kim on.
Would you
And
mind
Kim,
telling us a
thank
little bit
you.
about your organization?
Yeah, National Ladies Homestead Gathering. It's a nonprofit organization. Definitely not founded by me. Founded by a lady named Cindy Ball in 2011 in her living room in Georgia. She met with a group of her friends. They were homesteaders. They like-minded. Couldn't find anybody else that she really called friend who had the same interests. So anyways, they started this little group meeting every month. It evolved into some more ladies coming and then turned into a nonprofit offering chapters across the country. It was slow going at first, but really picked up. We have about 800 VIPs across the country.
Awesome.
Hawkins County, Tennessee is just a local chapter. I started that chapter here last February. We now have 55 VIPs. We have about 40 women who attend each month, sometimes 50 or 60. Just depends. Right now, everybody's busy on their homesteads, but we like to just share information, just like what Kim was talking about with homeopathy. We talk about meat animals, meat chickens, rabbits, different butchering, raising different types of breeds of animals, gardening, and Maria's on here, and she just went through a square foot gardening certification.
So good.
And her square foot garden is amazing. And I hope she doesn't care that I'm going to tell you this, but she's been called the plant murderer. And she's got an amazing garden right now.
It's true.
So
It's all true.
if that tells you anything, that might be something you might be interested in sharing at some point too. It's a certain combination of soil that is just fantastic.
Game changer. Game changer
Yeah,
on the soil.
game changer.
Game changer.
And the amount of stuff you can grow in a small area is just incredible. But anyhow, back to our organization. So it's free for anyone to join, 16 ladies 16 and over. Our purpose is just to empower women through homesteading. And our mission is to share knowledge, build community, and grow friendships. It's that simple. And you don't have to have acres. You don't have to have a farm. You don't have to have an animal. You just have to want to do something at home instead of going to the store. So plant a tomato, and you're a homesteader in our view. And it's all about sharing resources and building that community. And here in Hawkins, Tennessee, as Kim was mentioning earlier, we are a lot of transplants. We've come from California, Texas, New York, Connecticut, Ohio, Michigan, all over the place. And we've all come here for the same reason. But it was really hard until we started our chapter here to meet the same people because we didn't know that everybody else wasn't local. And once we started this chapter, it has done amazing things for this community. And it's not just the women. So the women, we only open our gatherings to women, but we also have social events where we'll do like a trapping workshop or a beekeeping workshop or a social potluck, different things like that. And then we invite families and husbands, and these husbands are really like, they're enjoying each other and they're kind of jealous. So anyone, if I don't know where you all are from on here, but if you are interested in starting your own local chapter, there'll be links. He has links that he'll post up later on where you can go check out National Ladies Homestead Gathering. We do have a private online network too. It's kind of like Facebook, same concept, but it's private. It's free to join. So you don't even have to have a chapter if you just want to come hang out with us on the community and see what we're all about. But we share things such as animal calling, butchering, things that we would get knocked off Facebook. So.
And we take care of each other.
Yeah, we really take care of each other.
I think I reached out. I think originally I was talking with Maria.
Yes.
We connected and stuff because I was kind of intrigued about y'all's group because y'all's group is a lot like the ladies version of our M.A.G group, building that connection, helping people to learn, educate, basically having each other's back. So it was great talking to Maria and then reaching out and getting to know you, Renee, and stuff. And I think there's some other things that we've talked about behind the scenes that may be coming up that we can work together on. And I'd definitely love to have some of y'all back on our Zoom classes for us. Again, we try to do these monthly free of charge to everyone, and then we put them on our YouTube channel. So it's always there so you can go back and reference. And as you said, at the end of this video, when I'm editing it to put up on our YouTube channel, at the end of the video, there will be a list put up of all those links that you did send me, Renee, so you can follow up with more information. As she said, wherever you are, if you're interested in the National Ladies Home Gathering groups or starting your own. And Renee, correct me if I'm wrong, you're actually the new group coordinators. What was that new title for the
new chapter coordinator for national. Okay. So if you start a new chapter, if you're interested in starting a new chapter, you will go through a vetting process, make sure you have your board members in place, you know what's expected of a chapter, and then you'll come directly to me. And then I guide you for the next 6 months, teaching you the ins and outs of, running your chapter and, getting you all started up and moving along.
Sounds good.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, ladies, Kim, Maria, can't leave you out because, like I said, you and I first initially contacted. And Renee, I greatly appreciate all y'all done. I appreciate you partnering with us to share your information. And again, I look forward to working with y'all again in the future and stuff. And Kim, thank you again for opening up my eyes to some stuff that I didn't have a clue about, to be honest with you. And
she's an excellent resource.
I agree. Homeopathy is one more tool that I can put in my toolbox to help me and my family, whatever happens and stuff. So thank you, ladies. I appreciate y'all's time. Y'all have a good evening. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Sir.
Night.
We hope you found this class beneficial and it gives you some good information on homeopathy and its various uses for you and your family. We're working on more great learning and fellowship opportunities, so be sure to subscribe and like our YouTube channel or join one of our Facebook groups or Instagram page to keep up with the latest information. Again, I want to thank Kim from the National Ladies Homestead Gathering, Hawkins, Tennessee chapter for opening up her home to us and sharing some great information. On behalf of the M.A.G Network, be safe and have the knowledge.